Hey, bingo, 4 o'clock rock here on Think Tech Hawaii. We are so happy to be here with Jane Sugimura, my partner of 35 years. Ooh, did you count that? Ooh.
Was it
Oh my
that
God.
long?
Yeah, ooh,
Well,
maybe 36.
Yeah,
Yeah,
long time.
long time. And Jane, somewhere along the line, got involved in condo practice, and she is the queen of the queen of condos. That's why she's a co-host on our show on Thursday, which is called Condo Insider, which is an examination of all the issues and people and vectors and problems that happen in that art form we consider condos. So welcome to the show, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, for having me here.
And Jane is the president of the Hawaii Council Association of Associations of Apartment Owners, which actually is a council of some 18,000 condominium apartment projects, right?
Well, I don't know if we have that many people, but you know, we've been around for a long time, and Aaron Cheney started.
I remember him.
Aaron Cheney started this organization many years ago.
It had to be in the 70s.
Yeah, in the 70s, you know, when condos were brand new, and you know, and people were trying to draft legislation. And Aaron had in fact set up a company, Cheney Brooks, and that was what they did. They managed condominium projects as one of their.
Yeah. Still do.
Yeah, they still do.
And of course, there's a lot more entries in the field now. A lot more companies are managing condo projects because there are a lot more condo projects.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, Hawaii has a very high percentage, per capita percentage of condo projects to population, isn't it true?
Yes.
Maybe the highest in the country.
Yes, they do, mainly because we don't have a lot of land.
Yeah.
And you know, so the only way we can house the population is by, you know, going
Well, that was a modern thought. The horizontal property regime, first adopted, as I recall, in 1960.
Right.
That's, let me get the math on that.
Right.
That's 55 years ago, 55
right.
years
And
ago.
It was restated, and so there's a new one that was the reconfigured, or the updated version of the condo law 514B went into effect 2006.
Yeah. And indeed, you know, it is an art form with its flaws, and it is a reflection of, you know, humanity and human conduct with all the foibles that brings with it. And our community, our society, which, you know, when you put a certain high percentage of people into condos, then, you know, you have a different society than if they're all in single-family homes.
Right. Well, you're living much more closer together.
Yeah.
And you give up a lot of your freedoms.
Yeah.
You have to make a lot of concessions.
Yeah.
You know, because now you're living in like a group, you know, in a group. So you know, there are rules that have to apply to everybody who lives in the building. And so people have to kind of give, you know, and one of the big concessions, I guess, in many buildings is a lot of buildings don't have pets, don't allow pets. And that's because
Why is that?
the
You know, I mean, I'm a pet lover, and I'm very suspicious of anybody who's not.
well, in my building, I know that, and I think it happened in a lot of buildings, but I live in, I own units in 2 condos, and in one of the buildings, the owners did pass a bylaw amendment to prohibit pets.
Why?
And that's because you have irresponsible pet owners who didn't take care of their pets,
Who make poop.
didn't clean up after them, and after a while you get people very irritated, you know, and when they see all this poop lying around and nobody picking it up, and they have dogs and cats running around without leashes, then, you know, people just get a little bit irritated.
It's too bad because it has a relatively permanent effect on that project.
Yes.
And it's a great imposition on, say, a pet owner.
Right. But you know, there are ways that, you know, people have to get around it under fair housing. Even if you have a no pets rule, you are allowed, if you are disabled, the condominium has to allow you to have.
Then we get into the interesting question of the law.
Right, yes.
The law that requires the condominium to allow people to have what was it, service dogs and personal comfort dogs?
Well, the fair housing says that you have to accommodate, make reasonable accommodation for the disabled. Now, and under
Disabled
fair,
people, not pets.
right, and
Pets have rights too, but not in this context.
not in this context. And under fair housing, disabled is defined by, you know, the federal statute. And so it is technical. But somehow with pets and condos, the Civil Rights Commission, which does the enforcement for EEOC and whatnot, has somehow expanded it to the chagrin of many, many, many
Condos.
condo owners, so that it covers animals that are assistance animals and comfort animals.
What's a comfort animal, Jane?
We
Tell the people what
we
that
really
is.
don't know what a comfort animal is. If you could give me a definition of a comfort animal,
Makes you feel comfortable.
that gives you comfort. In other words,
In your heart.
you're right. And we sit on the board, and what happens is we get letters from doctors and psychologists, and now we have to accept letters from social workers that say that, you know, Jane Doe, the resident in unit, 9K, is depressed, and she is a patient or a client, and if you were to let her have this little dog, it would address a lot of her stress, and that's a comfort animal.
Who could say no?
And we are
You
not
get a
allowed.
letter like that, you really have to.
We have to, because otherwise you end up with the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission.
And what happens if you end up with the Civil Rights Commission?
They can fine you. They can fine you for,
Big bucks.
yes, for large sums of money, and it's discrimination against disabled people. And I guess stress is a psychological disability.
Well, I'm going to tell you a short story. I had a client once. She was in her late 80s or early 90s, and she had a little dog, and a little elderly dog, the lady and the dog, both elderly. And they would go for a little walk every day. And I said to myself, she's got this symbiotic relationship with the dog. The dog is her best friend. This is I don't know if I ever said comfort dog, but the dog gave her comfort. And I said, you know, if without the dog, this woman is not going to live that long. The dog is kind of holding her in life. Mm-hmm. One day, the dog died. She died like a week later. This is what happens. Mm-hmm. Elderly people living alone, don't have anybody with them. You know, they're really lonesome at a profound level, at a visceral level. They need comfort pets.
Right.
And if they don't have comfort pets, they probably will suffer physically.
And anybody, I guess, who wants who lives in a condominium and wants to have a pet should go see the Humane Society, because they have the forms. And that's what we've been told.
Forms for what?
That you can go to your doctor or your social worker,
or
whoever,
to
fill it out and give it to your condo board.
I can just see somebody going to the Humane Society and saying, I'd like a comfort dog, if you don't mind. Yeah, and they said, well, we have the comfort dog you need right here. Here it is. So you may want, you audience, you may wonder why Jane and I are off talking about comfort dogs when the title of this show is Seniors in Condos. And the series is called Aging with Grace. The answer is, when you live in a condo, as Jane said, you're sort of boxed into all these rules and regulations. And it's important that we make the condo livable for seniors. And why? This bears some discussion, Jane. Why? Because a lot of people cannot afford to go to a care home, a specifically dedicated care home, and it's better for them, it's better for their pocketbooks and also their lives to stay in a condo instead. So what we have now is we have a trend, an evolution, a sea change maybe, of which you are a part, to make condos more livable for seniors. Am I right about that?
Yes, we have an aging in place legislation that is in the old law, which is 514A, as well as in the new law, 514B, except it's more expanded in the 514B. The reason why this came about, because before the law happened, and this is going back maybe 15 years, before the law happened, there were people who were living in condominiums and who were getting older, and many of them, you know, were original owners. They had moved to Hawaii or they retired from the military, and you know, they just got older, and their friends moved away. They were from the mainland anyway, so they had no family. And for some reason, I mean, you know, some of them had dementia. Some of them were trust fund babies. We had stories about trust fund babies.
What do you mean by a trust fund baby?
Where you have First Hawaiian Bank paying their maintenance fees.
They don't even know what's going on.
They don't know what's going on. They don't care. They pay the maintenance fees. And so you have people who have dementia who go walking around the hallways, you know, half clothed, and somehow it became the condominium association's problem to deal with these elderly people.
If I'm the neighbor down the hall, I want the condominium to help me with that. I don't want people.
But we had
walking
liability.
around.
I mean, we had liability. We can't touch them. We had no authority to get them help. And so we went to the legislature and we basically said, you know, you need to give us freedom from so we got the Good Samaritan statute. In other words, if we, the association,
yeah.
help an elderly person or a disabled person,
Yeah.
we're not liable. In other words, we can
in
do
good faith.
In good faith,
Yeah.
we can do that. We can, and with the elderly, what we have done, it has evolved to now, and it would apply to disabled people, is if somebody is, and to give you an example, somebody is old and has got dementia and they start hoarding, okay?
What's hoarding?
And they start saving newspapers, and you open the door and you can see the newspapers are just
I've seen
places
like
you
that.
can't walk, and that's a fire hazard. Can you
It's a
imagine
mental
living?
condition,
Can
too.
you imagine living next door to that? And there were bugs and cockroaches, and so people were complaining. So you had to call the fire department. I mean, the health department for the bugs, but still. This was a hoarder, and it was not safe. But this was a trust fund baby, so First Hawaiian Bank or Bank of Hawaii or whatever bank it was, they didn't care. That was our problem. And the families, we didn't know who the family was because the family was on the mainland.
And the person may not be able to tell you.
Right. And
so you start to get the idea, that in these tall towers lives a population that you don't necessarily know who they are.
Right.
In fact, nobody knows who they are. And they are isolated, remote. They
may have had friends and relatives, but now they're getting older and they've died off or they've
Right.
moved away. And now the association is left taking care of them.
So integrate all that. Think about that. I'll give you 1 minute to think about that while we take this break. And we'll come back and we'll see the extent of the problem and how you fix it if you can. We'll be right back.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, 25 talk shows by 25 dedicated hosts every week, helping us to explore and understand the issues and events in and affecting our state. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Aloha, my name is Jeff James, and I'd like to invite you to watch my show, The Military in Hawaii. It'll be shown every Friday at 11 a.m. here on thinktech.com. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m. Mahalo.
Guess what? You're with Aging with Grace, here with Jane Sugimura and I on a nice Tuesday afternoon. She's the president of the Hawaii Council of the Associations of Apartment Owners. She's been the president of that council for a long time, as I recall. And we're talking about seniors in condos here on Aging with Grace because, it's a problem that has not really been revealed to the public. Imagine, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. The population of the state is 1.3 million. Hundreds of thousands of people live in condominiums, and that's the way it is. It's not going to change. They're not going to go to single-family residence. They can't. they stay in condos. And either as tenants or as owners, they stay in condos. And condos, you know, they're great in some ways, but in other ways, they isolate people and enhance this loneliness. And, you know, you can say that condos create community, but for a lot of people, condos do not create community. And you get old in a condo, and it can really be bad. Not only for you, as an isolated person with medical problems that nobody cares about, but for your neighbor who's concerned about safety and health and hazards and whatnot. So as the president of this council for so many years, you have been knowledgeable about this, and you have actually addressed it. You didn't have to, but you did. As a matter of,
we did have to address it because we had so many people coming to us and telling us that there was this issue. And the one thing my group does, and we've worked with other groups in the state, is we've gone into the legislature and advocated for changes. And this was one of the things that we just had to go in because as people were aging and we found out they had no relatives or friends who were taking care of them, the care fell onto the association. So the first thing we had to do, and the legislature gave us, they gave us a limitation of liability. In other words, there's a
good Samaritan help.
Good Samaritan help.
And that
In
means
other words,
what? What does that mean?
That means that we can take affirmative action to help the elderly or the disabled in a building.
What does that mean in practical effect?
In practical effects, that there's a social agency, and what we do with elderly people is to call Catholic Charities. They have social workers. They come in, and the unit owner, the resident, is the client. The association will pay the social worker, will pay Catholic Charities for the social worker's fee.
That's very nice.
Because we can then assess the unit owner.
Oh, under this statute?
No, we can do it under our condo laws.
Existing condo law.
Right.
Existing articles and bylaws
Right.
and all
If
that.
the association undertakes any task and it results in an expense, then we can charge the unit owner.
Okay.
But it is specified under the statute that we can go out and hire social workers to come in and basically assist that person. The person will come in and find out, okay, what do you need? You need somebody to help you with groceries, maybe somebody to come in and help you clean your apartment once a week, or take you to the doctors and things like that. And so the social worker will set up these plans.
Who actually does those things? Does the social worker do
No,
those
the social worker will hire vendors.
Okay.
You know, somebody.
So and that's cheap.
Right.
And who pays for the vendors?
The homeowner.
Okay.
So it's not a free service, but what it does, and usually, you know, these people can afford it, and it means somebody is taking care of them.
Yeah.
And it's not the association, because the association's not capable of doing that, but we can implement it.
Yeah.
And if there is a person who...
This is very humane, actually, because the alternative is bleak.
Well, you know, with the social worker, if it gets to the point where that person cannot take care of themselves,
Yeah, what happens?
they have, because they're social workers, they can call an agency in the state. We as the association, because we're not related to them, we have no legal connection
Yeah, you're
to
just
that
meddling is what happens.
Right.
Yeah, so you have to
So
have the official social worker do it.
So we're kind of facilitating.
Yeah.
We're the facilitator.
Yeah.
But because of the statute, we can do that.
Yeah.
Before the statute, we couldn't.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do it without impunity. I mean, we would have been exposing ourselves and our employees to liability.
That's a good statute, no question about it.
Right.
Has it had the desired effect?
I think so. You know, I've been hearing, I haven't heard any bad things about it, and it works for the elderly, it works for the disabled, and it works for those who have mental issues, mental disabilities. And you know, we had this one situation, and it was really quite sad. I heard it from one of the condo attorneys in town. There was a couple who had a bipolar daughter, and they bought her a condominium, and they put the
Stashed away the condominium.
and they put the name condominium, and they put the daughter's name on the condominium. And when the daughter went off her meds and started acting very strange and and the neighbors were starting to complain to the association.
Yeah.
Association called the parents, and the parents said, "That's your problem, not ours. She's an adult."
Whoa.
And you know,
Fobbing off your daughter on the condo association.
and they continued to, pay the maintenance fees, and so it was like, I mean, what can you do? And so under this statute, they were allowed to, contact.
The condo was.
The condo was these social workers who dealt with people with mental disabilities
Yeah.
to provide the services that this person needed, and and if it got to the point where the person would not be able to function
Yeah.
because of their expertise, because they're social workers,
Yeah.
they could contact the right government,
Charitable agencies,
whatever government
agencies.
agency, to assist them and remove them from wherever they are.
And take the legal action sometimes necessary to accomplish that. Yeah.
Right,
Like guardianship, what have you.
right.
That's really a pain, but it sounds like you've got a handle on it. I mean,
Well,
I hesitate to think what was going on beforehand.
Right, and we were forced to take those actions mainly because it was like, what do we do? I mean, this guy walks around the hallway naked, or the person in, unit 406 has got newspapers up to the ceiling, and there must be something we could do. I mean, you don't want to live next door to that
Yeah.
person.
Or they don't clean.
Or, yeah, they
Or
don't
live
clean.
food throughout the unit. It was awful. Neighbors will find out about that pretty quick, the smell.
Right. Well, I had a neighbor in one of my one of the condos, and I guess because I'm Japanese, he figured I could talk to this woman, and he told me that he had not been in the unit, but the woman's husband had passed away, and she wasn't old. I think she was in her 50s. But he asked me to go talk to her. When I went to talk to her, I couldn't even walk. I mean, there were bags, and there were. It was. She was like a hoarder. I mean, there were bags, there were newspapers. There was no place to sit, and.
I've seen houses and condos like that.
But it's really scary.
It always reflects some kind of mental issue, whether it's depression or worse.
But because I was able to talk to her, and I got her to agree to talk to this church group, and it's the Buddhist church, and I can't remember what the name of the group is, but I got her because they speak Japanese. And and if I were to say their name, I think a lot of people would.
Don't say the name. Yeah,
But
okay.
it is. And what they do is they go into people's homes, and they're volunteers, and they take them grocery shopping. And I got them to come and help her, and they came and they cleaned her house. They took her grocery shopping, and we got the unit cleaned up, and I guess she had some medical problems, so they were taking her to the doctors, and it's just a matter of and if it wasn't for the people who lived across the hallway to say, can you just go in and talk to her, because we think she needs some help, and living in a condominium, I mean, that's what neighbors do.
Well,
and
it strikes me that although the condominium statute was never intended to create a social community, just a horizontal property regime, or a vertical property regime, more often the case, you have created, Jane, and the council, you have created a kind of community. You do take responsibility on a human scale.
I think most people, who are active in their association, like to think of their project as a community, and so they do try to look out for each other, and that's why they want the rules followed, and they want to make sure that people don't smoke in the common elements, and even people who, and I just had a situation where somebody wanted to make their condominium a non-smoking condominium, and I said, well, you can do that if you had enough people to vote to change your declarations.
How many do you need? What percentage?
You need 75% of the ownership.
Okay.
But for somebody who bought into the unit, maybe even 5 years ago, and what you pay for a condominium, I mean, it's your home. It's the biggest investment that most people make is to buy a home.
So you have a balance there.
You have to
with
balance.
The neighbors versus
and even and I was a smoker for many years, and I've quit for 5 years. To me, that's not fair. You know, for a condominium owner who, you know, smokes only in his or her unit, doesn't smoke in the common elements, you cannot be, you know, taking a vote to make it a non-smoking building, because you're basically telling that person they got to move.
Yeah.
Because they can't.
Well, I'm going to impose my standards on you.
And right now, the statute says you can't do that. The statute says that the board cannot make rules to govern conduct inside your unit.
Unless it affects the people next door.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know, what I get out of this is that when the condominium statute was passed, and Hawaii was early in this, and had a lot of, a little trouble sort of, you know, making it work in some of the condos that we built in the 60s and 70s. We're now more experienced, and thanks to your organization, we're more humane, and where it was not intended to be a community social building kind of legal structure, it has become that. And in a funny way, what you're doing and what these condos are doing is actually improving the quality of life for the people who live in condos. We come back, though, from this break. I'd like to address exactly what you can do, should do, might do, may do in the future in order to make these condos work for elderly people, because a lot of the people in the condos are going to stay there.
Yes,
They're
right.
going to age in place and age with grace.
And that's what the name of the section says, aging in place.
Perfect. So when we come back, I'd like to know how you do that and whether, you know, it will be a trend that we should be watching for in the future. That's Jane Sugimura. She's really it's a big heart, and the president of the Hawaii Council of Associations of Apartment Owners. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on Think Tech Hawaii. I hope that you will tune in and watch the show. It is inspiring and uplifting and educational also. We talk with artists of all different ilk. We talk with them about what they do, how they do it, and most importantly, most dear to my heart, why they do it. And it never ceases to be fascinating when you get the answer to that question. I hope you'll join us on Center Stage, 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoons. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Richard Emery, and I host Condo Insider. We talk about issues facing the condo association throughout Hawaii and talk about solutions. When you think about it, about 1/3 of our population lives in some form of common interest real estate. We broadcast every Thursday at 3 p.m. Please tune in, and thank you. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Jane Sugimura, an attorney and the president of the Hawaii Council of Associations of Apartment Owners, here on Aging with Grace. And we're talking about seniors in condos. And that's, you know, it all works so well because you're actually involved in doing that. And I think it's fair to say for this discussion, Jane, that the need to be mindful, considerate, and offer some relief and help to seniors is going to grow as the bell curve of condo residents grows in the state. Where else can they go? Most of them have no choice but to age in place.
Right. And that's why the statute was enacted. And, you know, one of the things we contemplated, because, you know, when we were going through the legislation, we had seminars. And, you know, we had people, you know, and we had a lot of interest. And people were saying, well, you know, in a high-rise, if we could get vendors to come in and offer their services to, you know, to clean apartment, if they could clean 15 apartments, you know,
Get a better deal.
Yeah, you get a better deal. And so, you know, the group, you know, so maybe you could organize a group and start, you know, contacting vendors and saying, you know, we have a group of seniors who live here who could use housekeeping.
That's a great idea.
You know, and so what kind of a rate will you give us?
Yeah.
And you know, I know the Catholic Charities people were looking at a program like that, and so, you know, somebody could call them if they have a group. And and I know that there were people in various buildings who were setting up networks mainly to keep in touch. In other words, there was like a network where people would either email or phone on a daily basis to basically say, I'm alive, I'm still
Sure.
here.
You have to monitor people at a
Right.
certain age. You better do that.
Right, and so they would and they would do things like once a month they would go to a movie, or they would
These are services that are offered by care homes.
Right.
It's the same thing.
and they did it voluntarily. They would meet at the pool or the cabana or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
A bunch of retired people,
And what did the condo association do to make that happen? What steps
well,
did it
well,
take?
we encouraged the association to facilitate that.
Yeah.
And one of the things about the condo is if you get the contractors coming in, like the people who do the cleaning, or let's say you have somebody coming in to take people to their doctor's appointments,
Yeah.
or to take them grocery shopping,
Yeah.
you need parking spaces.
Yeah.
And so people said, okay, well, what can we do? Well, you have a condominium, and half your people are working 9 to 5, 8 to 4,
Brilliant.
right?
Brilliant.
And so this is something that they could do, post a sign and say, will you volunteer your stall? Can we have it from 9 to, in other words, they're gone all day. So
Sure.
would you voluntarily let us give it
Sure,
to?
and they would.
Right, and so
Because
you've
it's
got
for
all
their
these
benefit
empty
too.
stalls.
Yeah.
All day long.
Right.
Right, and
Yeah.
so if the unit owners would agree that the association, and the association would participate because they would know which stalls
Sure.
could be used.
It's easy to keep records on it.
Right, because you wouldn't have to have that many stalls, but you
Yeah.
would have to have a certain number of stalls because you're going to have the regular contractors coming in to do the plumbing, the electrician,
Yeah.
and the renovations
Lovely.
that people are doing. But you need additional stalls for the guys who come in to service the seniors, like the cleaning people, the guys who take them to do, the grocery
Yeah.
shopping.
Yeah.
And so you need those extra stalls.
I love it. I love it. This is so kind and humane and
And,
smart.
so this is something that, we have explored and talked to the property management companies about, and the aging in place, would support a program like that. And we try to educate the association and their, managing agents so that they are aware of such a law, that they know that if something happens, that they have options. In other words, they can't throw up their, because if something like that happens, if you have an elderly person, and they've got, they're hoarding, or they don't clean and you've got all these bugs, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do. You can call the Department of Health and they'll send their vector squad over. But,
that may not change it, though.
yeah, nobody's going to change the hoarding
Yeah.
and the fire hazard,
Yeah.
And,
but suppose
and the dementia, when they go around and they don't know what they're doing, and nobody knows what to do. I mean, because most people, you're just kind of, it's ingrained in you that you just don't go and help somebody who's basically a stranger to you.
Yeah.
You don't interfere.
We need to do that, though, in condos. We need to have social communities in condos. It's all we got. We got
Right.
to do that. But I want to, advance a concern. So I live in a condo, and I love what you're doing on Condo B down the block. Great idea. But it's not happening in Condo A because nobody got together, and the condo board, is not really focused on it. And so what happens is there is no, cleaning group, and there is nobody taking me shopping and or taking me for entertainment. And I'm really frustrated, and I have, kind of I'm jealous of what's going down the block. Why can't that happen? What do I do? How do I express myself? How does the council make that second, the first condominium act like the second one?
Well, I think what you have to do, because every condominium is different, you have a different set of board, and I like to think that most boards are sensitive to their owners, and I think if you get a group together, it doesn't have to be a large group, and say, we would like your assistance. We think that, if we got together and, and you could call Catholic Charities, I know they have this program, and they will come and, help you organize it, because
You organize other owners.
Right.
And then now you have a constituency. You go to the board, you have a voice.
right. And all you're asking them for is assistance and maybe getting parking spaces for the contractors when they come to offer
But
services.
it's this very collaboration that brings them together.
Right.
And gives them a community, gives them friends they might not otherwise have had. It gives people who are lonesome an opportunity not to be so lonesome.
Right, and sometimes it takes somebody in each building to basically spearhead, be the organizer. And I know in the situations that I can recall, and one was Yacht Harbor Tower, one was the Mott Smith. They had a group at one time. And it only takes one person to organize it, and they were quite successful.
It's a beautiful idea. Now, you also told me before the show about little accoutrements in the public spaces, the common area spaces of the condos. For example, door handles. For example,
yes.
elevator adjustments to accommodate for elderly people.
Yeah, because it didn't occur to me, because when you're able-bodied and not arthritic, the fact that a doorknob is round is not a problem. I was told that they are for people who have arthritis and older people, that the type of handle that you push down, I don't know what it's called, but there's the lever kind.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up replacing all of our door handles in the condominium, so that, for the exterior doors and whatnot.
And the condo paid for that.
And the condo paid
because
for
it was
that.
in the interest of the owners to be able to manipulate the door.
Right. And it came to our attention too, and I didn't realize this. This is what you learn when you sit on the board, that the elevator doors can be regulated. You can time it so that it closes slowly, and you can actually set the time for it to close.
So-
and you have to set it so that it doesn't
Crush anybody.
crush anybody, or when it touches somebody or
Bounces right
it
off.
bounces right off,
Yeah.
because you could hurt somebody who's very frail.
Yeah.
And I didn't know things like that, and so we had to have all of our elevators adjusted, which wasn't expensive, but it was something that can be done. And our doors, our main door is electronic. So when you go in,
Yeah.
I mean, we have fobs. So once you have the fob, it opens.
Yeah.
So there's no handles.
Yeah.
And that's basically to help the elderly, because before it was a big, heavy glass door. And when you're older, and especially if you're carrying groceries,
Sure.
it's hard to open
Sure.
up that door and go in.
Well, there's a million things you can do. And it occurs to me, for example, that in a condo I lived in, they got some contractors came around and they would enclose your lanai. And you knew the price in advance, and it was acceptable to the board. And so it was not very hard or expensive to enclose your lanai. The same token, if you need handicap type, improvements in your condo, the condo could put you in touch with some contractors who would do it on a uniform basis for relative, at a discounted price. But what I want to get to here in the last couple of minutes of our program, Jane, is where this is all going, because it strikes me that you are riding a horse that will take condos to another level, never anticipated in 1960. That the condos will become kind of a parallel to care homes. As people age, they age in place, they age in condos they bought and have been living in. Maybe in a lot of cases they bought the fee. A lot of their investment money is in that real estate. It's very hard for them to move. It's very hard for them to step it up and go to a senior care facility, which costs significantly more. So, the right thing, the humane thing, is to make the building handle the seniors as everyone gets old. So what is going to happen? How do you see this unfolding?
Well, no, under the scenario that is in place right now, the social workers that, the association can contact to come in and help a particular unit owner that we see is having some issues that affect other unit owners, they would be given services. And the association, their job is to facilitate that unit owner getting those services. So if the social worker is able to work out a program to keep that person in that unit, that means maybe the person will have to have cleaners coming in once a week, would have to have somebody buying groceries and taking the person to doctor's appointments, and
Or a nurse to come in and live.
right. And if it gets to the point where that individual cannot survive without the people going in, then the social worker has the authority to contact whatever government agency or the relatives, or somebody to remove that person and put them in a medical facility.
It's cumulative. I mean, it's
I mean,
the elevated doors.
as long as they are, they're able, the aging in place statute will facilitate their remaining in their unit. But when they become unable to take care of themselves, then
it's in the condo's interest to have them go to an appropriate facility.
yes.
You
But
you
so
don't,
long
you don't
as
want
they
them
can,
hurting themselves.
right? We don't want them hurting themselves because that just is liability for the building.
What I'm getting at, though, is that looking down the trail here, looking at the next, say, 20 years, when a lot of the people in these condos are going to be hitting, very senior ages, the condos will evolve. I mean, with the start that you personally have given this through the council, the condos will evolve to be more and more like, am I right? I want to know your thought about this. More and more they will evolve to be care homes. Not completely, not totally like a professional care home, but they'll have layered effects, cumulative things that the boards and the council has done and recommended so that the condos are more and more comfortable over time.
I hope so, because right now what the aging in place law does, it allows the association to put the unit owner in touch with somebody who's going to help them get the services that they need so they can remain in their unit and age in place. I mean, that's why it's called aging in place. When that's no longer possible and the association is not the people who make that decision, it's in the hands of, the social worker and the resident. And when that decision is made, then that person will go to someplace else. But the whole purpose of the aging in place law is to provide the resources so that that person can remain there, and to make sure that the association is going to cooperate.
Right. Because you need
need
boards of directors change. They come, they go. They may not know about this.
Yes, you need to have the board cooperate. And if it means that you need parking spaces, I mean, that was a good idea that somebody brought up. You've got a whole garage.
I want to add one other thought to this, that as this process evolves, as the sea change takes place, you're talking about thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of condo projects in the state. And what does this suggest to us? It suggests that technology will have a huge effect on all this. For example, the parking you talked about.
Right.
This is so easy to make an app. Where's the parking space? How many parking spaces? For what hours? I mean, there are already people making parking apps like this that could be adapted to the use you've described easily. And so what I'm saying is when you have numbers of condos and people, just sort of moving people around, making place for them, technology has a huge place. So I'm sure that you, as the president, the life president of the Hawaii Council, you will make room for that also. And this will be something in Hawaii that will be known around the world, that we can handle our kupuna in place. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you for inviting me.
Jane Sugimura, the president of the Hawaii Council of Apartment Owners, here on Aging with Grace, talking about seniors and condos. Wow, I'm impressed. Thanks, Jane.